welcome to Scarlet Serpent readings. Thank you so much for joining me in today's Timeless Pick a Card reading, where we'll be receiving a message from your future self. And I want to be, I guess, a bit more specific, the highest potential. There are many potential future selves, so this is coming from the future you in a timeline that you would consider to be ideal, if that makes sense. So, and I want to thank you so much for your patience, because I know it's been quite a minute since I've done a pick a card, but I'm going to keep this one relatively short just to see if it actually uploads this time, but if it does, then it's going to be rapid fire, so I'm very excited about that. So we're just going to jump right in. I have 3 different piles for you. Pile 1 is going to be this, I think it's a carnelian gemstone, and then we have the sunstone for pile 2. Doesn't help that it's the same color as my hand, right? And then pile 3 is this blue kyanite. And I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture, and if you need some more time, you can go ahead and pause the video now, but otherwise I look forward to seeing you at your reading. Hi, pile 1. If you chose the carnelian stone, this is going to be your reading. A message from your future self. So, yeah, let's just jump right in and see how are you aligned to your highest potential, to really the dreamer. The dreamer has been, or just dream messages has been something that I've been noticing a lot in the readings, and I guess for myself as well. Dreaming big, dreaming as big as you can, and I think straight away it's like this being a message from the future that has achieved that dream. It's as simple as saying that it's possible, and I know that it's a little cliche or easy to say from, I guess, any other sort of guidance, but when it's coming from you that's already accomplished this, and not just success, but this level of peace, serenity, and happiness, that it's still achievable at any stage in your life. You know, you don't have to give up or say it's too late. Actually, we'll just do 3 cards. So it's pretty clear, a message of the way to achieve this state is through being in a point of neutrality, almost, of you could feel the extremes of the highs and lows, but really it's at the middle point where things just kind of glide into existence, into manifestation. We have the Protector as the first card. And I'm not even going to bother putting these, the King, Queen, or whatever of Wands and Air and things like that. This is 2 sides of you that have been fighting for a while. And this is, Moon and Sun being seen as opponents, and in a general sense, it's like taking action, or being receptive, or being protective, or almost vulnerable. And there's a strong need in all aspects of your life. Let's say in relationships, when it comes to putting yourself out there, it's like, are you going to use an app? Are you going to go out to places and clubs or events? And there's this part that's like, yeah, put yourself out there, but at the same time, it's also being receptive and allowing yourself to wander a little bit, and allow yourself to almost magnetize people, opportunities, and things like that. And then we have the Dreamer card, which is what I mentioned in the very beginning, and this is almost a serene state, and it looks like she's balancing these 2 out, that she's at least finally at one with them, integrating these energies. And then at the very end, this last card is Infinite Path. So there's a lot of ways to get to where you want to go. There's a lot of different, like the card says, different paths, so you can set that goal for yourself. You can set that mindset of where you want to end up being, but your future self is saying, there's a lot of different ways to get to where I am right now, and it might not seem like the ideal path for you, but in any path that you take, there's lessons to be learned. There's wisdom and there's growth, and really that's the journey to get there. It's the journey of becoming what you want, like learning a new subject, learning to write, to draw, to do anything. I think that's what your future self is saying, to enjoy the almost the tedium of becoming great at something, because you could imagine kind of like, it's like when you play a video game, spoiler alert, I think the next pick a card is going to be a massive reading about League of Legends and archetypes, and drawing like the bridge between that video game realm and seeing how you'd be like a player in this game. But anyway, I'm just excited about it. But oh no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's like cheat codes. If you have infinite ammo, or if you could just get to the last boss and beat the last boss easily, it's a boring game. If you could just immediately become good at something. I don't know, I keep going back to learning something new. If some of you have been considering either going back to school or picking up a new hobby and saying, oh, it's too late, or mostly it's too late. At least that might be the mindset that the current version of you is thinking or contemplating, but it's a joy to see the little steps of progress, and you might not even notice it until you reflect on where you started. So to enjoy, and to notice these steps toward whatever path it is you choose. It's not written out for you, and I think for some of you might almost want to know where you're going, but it's again, there's that balance of knowing what you want, but then not knowing exactly what you want and how you're gonna get it, but not really knowing how you're gonna get it. There's these little twists and turns that make life enjoyable, really, that make it interesting. It's like if you're gonna watch a movie but you know the entire plot. I mean, yeah, there's cinematography, but at the same time, if the twist, that's ridiculous. I said twist, and then we have a twister here. But if the twist is revealed too early in the plot and you could see through it, it just becomes a boring movie. And especially if it's a TV show, like you already know who did what, and you just kind of, like, so there's a lot of major arcana here. So I mean, this is big energy, and I think once you get to that energetic level, that's when you'll start realizing that you are your future self that has accomplished all of the levels of success that you've been wanting. I do see the veil here, and you're more than welcome to communicate with this and tap into it. It takes just a second to be like, let me just see how my future feels like. I say that pretty often, but underneath the protector we see the peacock, which is the Empress. It's through compassion that you're able to unionize these two wildly different energies, but they both have their place. The creative and destructive parts of you. Destruction makes way for creation, and destruction is also kind of just raw energy, and creation is more relaxed. In other words, with the Eight of Birds, Eight of Swords, I think this is, it's showing me that your future self is saying that this combining is where you're at right now, why you might be feeling a bit stuck. Normally the Eight of Swords is that person who's stuck in the gate. But this one's a twister, which is interesting, right? So it's almost saying that the mind is moving too much. And probably through meditation that would slow down, but Also, too much movement as to what if, like if I do this, there's a lot of options for you. If I do this, you're in a certain way, you're planning too far ahead and anticipating obstacles. I think that might be something your future self is saying, is that you have a tendency to, in preparation for potential obstacles, you're almost creating them in a way. If this happens, I'll do this, and if this happens, I'll do that. And it's like, well, none of it has actually happened yet. Even if it has in the past, it's almost blocking you from moving in directions that you would normally not hesitate to jump at, And then we have the Death card underneath into the Infinite Paths. What's interesting about this Death card is that it is not actually the Death card, it's the Fool, which is the beginning. So there, again, this is a reflection of these two opposing energies of I don't know, for some of you, the idea of having that many options can be overwhelming, and if it was less about where to go and more about how you're getting there, how you feel while you're getting there, and this sense of serenity and knowing that, even if it's a less ideal situation that you end up finding yourself in, that if you could find peace in even those moments, then you're most aligned with the future self. Because again, this version of you doesn't necessarily have more money or more abundance or the perfect husband or wife or whatever. It's this future version of you is just really, really content, peaceful, and in love with themselves. And that's really the ultimate goal, I think, for your future self. That's what they're telling you, is that, the world will keep spinning around you, but if you could manage to anchor yourself to yourself, to your heart, your solar plexus, and just the passing of the experience, like clouds passing, you could really enjoy the journey a little bit more. So let's get a couple oracle cards. I wanted to just get one to see any potential obstacles, or I'm thinking like speed boosts in your path towards, and then we have sovereignty with the number 8, and infinity with the number 8 as well. So I would say that seeing the number 8 or an infinity sign or an ad with infinity might even be your future self coming through to you. And I think at the end of the day, what you want is freedom. But freedom, and I've said this before, it's a mindset just as much as anything. Even if you're stuck somewhere, can you find peace there? Can you find a way of being free within a confined space? And that could be, it's very powerful. Also suggesting solar plexus work, because I'm seeing like the solar plexus is opening paths. It's the confidence in knowing that wherever you go is the right way, even if it isn't. I know it's a bit what's the word? Not a paradox. Anyway. Yeah, I can't find the word. I'm looking for the word. But maybe redefining what freedom means for you and writing about it and seeing how that that'd be an interesting little exercise, like a journal entry every Friday or Saturday or Sunday, probably Sunday, where you define what it means, what freedom means to you, how you're trying to get to freedom, and then maybe one day you'll realize that you are free, as free as you need to be in that moment, and that might accelerate your progress towards becoming this future self again. So let's see, I guess, what kind of elementals, guides, deities can help you align with this highest version, highest potential, really, in finding happiness and so forth. We have Archangel Michael with courage and truth, the number 10. For those of you who have been watching some of my lives, this wouldn't be too much of a surprise. And especially with courage. Courage to walk paths that you didn't think you could. And maybe that might be this infinite path card kind of changes when you think of how you get to a state of serenity, and I'm not even mentioning any jobs. I'm not even mentioning lifestyle. I'm not mentioning any of that because your perception of how important that is or what would bring the most joy will change. I think that's what your future self is saying too. And have the confidence to really stand firm in where you are at this moment. And that's how you spread your wings. So, yeah, I'm going to end the reading there at 14:41. I just saw it there. But hopefully you enjoyed this reading. I just wanted to see if I could keep it condensed, and hopefully I could upload this video. And if so, you could expect quite a few more in the near future. But I appreciate your support, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Take care. Hi, Pile 2. If you chose the Sunstone, this is going to be your reading. A message from your future self. And it's funny because I did like a super mini power meditation, and I kept hearing higher self, and I just found that interesting, that it's almost becoming the higher self is your future self. Although you could argue that the higher self is you now. I don't want to get too far into that, so let's just jump right into the reading. Okay. Message from your future self. You have the 9 of Cups, the Mender in reverse, which I don't usually do reversals, but there it is. And then we have the Crow, which is the Magician. For me, it's like your past has almost gotten a resentment for fixing other people's lives, and it's like sometimes you felt as though, at least in the 3D, you haven't had the help that you've been giving to others, and there's a slight, like I said, resentment for it. But there's a shift happening. And that resentment is part of the experience. Those bursts of anger, or I don't want to say hate, but that intense emotion that a lot of times in the spiritual community where it said, don't hate, transmute the hate. Obviously, yeah, definitely. But when it passes through, it is emerging for a reason. It's there. It's an energy that's, I don't know, it's part of the universe, and to like run away or to be afraid of it is not something I think your higher self, I don't know, your higher self, I'm saying higher self and not the future, and that's what I'm saying. It's like that they're one and the same, really, at least in this case. But I didn't show you the card, so let me show you 9 of Cups here. Definitely transition. I like putting it like this too. You could imagine the perspective. And then we have the Mender, which was in reverse, like this. So, which way is up and which way is down? And I think this part of an anger, I'm saying angry or resentful, whatever it is, the shadow, it's like tying back, shameless tie-in to my next pick a card, which is a League of Legends inspired reading. But one of the champions has a backstory. She's Riven, and she has to slay, I'll say slay, not the other word, but someone, I'm not going to get into the story, but After she takes this person down, she breaks the sword and she wants to scatter the pieces of the sword and never fight again. What's interesting is later they released a skin, like a clothing line for her. You could change the skins, you have to pay for it. But in that clothing line, that costume, I guess you could say, is the opposite was a shadow, is like a demon form or whatever. But this form, her shadow self, had to actually, her quest, instead of, as opposed to the one in the regular world, break the sword and scatter the pieces, she has to pick them up, and that was the only way to bring her soul together. And I think, I don't know, I know a lot of us do shadow work, but if it's really just being above and below water, it's not so much good, bad, hot, cold, but just another perspective. And I would think that your higher self, and I'm saying this one deliberately, is longing for a little bit more intimacy with your shadow, with a part of you that you feel doesn't need as much attention or doesn't deserve it, but it's like there's a secret within this shadow, especially. So if you're guided towards shadow work at this time, I think it would be particularly helpful. Or maybe a meditation, or maybe you're just like a little more irritated than usual, and I think that's just these energies are coming up for acknowledgement, and that would be more than enough. Is just noticing that it's there instead of running from it. Just, okay, I'm angry, let me just go for a long walk and use that energy in a productive way. I love heavy metal, and I think that I lift a lot heavier when I listen to that music, and I think it does have a place, not to say to always be that way, but that it can help, especially when it applies to achieving certain goals. There's like a certain push that you might need, and it's not a bad guy, it's not an enemy. Also, you might be listening to crows. I think crows, ravens would be animal spirits that have a message for you. And 555, I just saw it. To not be afraid of that, right? So we have the Four of Pentacles, the Wanderer, and then the Nine of Pentacles. So we have the 9 coming up twice. Let me just show you this card real quick. There's a longing for stability and for adventure. Right. And in a similar but somewhat different way from Pile 2, it's a blending of these. I think your shadow wants more adventure, more chaos, more spontaneity, and your higher self wants something stable, something solid, because I think a lot of your life has been this up and down, and it's exhausting, kind of like being on a ship, the rocking back and forth. It's like at some point I want to be on land so I could not be dizzy constantly. But it's like when you go on a cruise, that's part of it. It's, you don't get to go on a cruise all the time, and I guess at a soul level, you don't get to experience the ebb and flow of the intense emotions of planetary living, I guess earthly living. I think that's a big part of our purpose here on Earth, is to experience the extremes of the emotional spectrum, I guess. What's interesting is that the top row of cards, mostly it feels fluid. It feels ever-changing. And then at the bottom we have more solid ground, if you will. I guess you could argue two things, but I forgot one immediately, so sorry about that. The other one would be that's solidity that you're looking for is at a soul level again. It's connection to your spiritual self, to spirit in itself, or to the universe as a whole. And that maybe this up and down, as I said, is just your earthly experience, and it's fun. It's a short cruise ship. Like, it lasts a week in the scale of your infinite lifespan at a soul level. But what's interesting is we have the 9 of Pentacles underneath the crow, right? Oh, the camera was focusing too much on my shiny forehead. You know, within yourself and within others, if there's like a challenging person in your life, a sister, coworker, or whatever, if they are being that shadow with these intense energies, projections of hatred or deceptive energy, can you see the light within them? And if you do, that's what the crow, I guess, with the 3 these 3 things, these 3 lights on there. If you can recognize it and know that you all share the same origin, and that goes for any living or non-living things, that ultimately we all come from the same place. And so I think that would be your anchor that you've been looking for, that your future self has been looking for, like a sense of connectedness and groundedness. And your roots, is like, how far down do they go, you know? I do think you're longing for a stable either relationship or way of living, and that comes from spirit, that comes from a connection to the ground that you're walking on, the sun, things like that. If you can ground yourself into the ethereal, I guess, I think you'll feel more grounded physically as well. So I want to get 2 more oracle cards, one being like an aiding, or it's like what could be a potential obstacle to feeling this blissful future self's energy, or it could be guiding you towards it. Participation, community. Let me show you something. This was the Mender. I don't know, these just feel very similar. And if you do, for some of you, you might be saying, I don't feel resentment or anything, but it might be a very subconscious irritation at other people moving forward in life after they've met you in a positive way. But I think your future self is saying that that's been part of your journey. It's like you're a support, an enchanter support character, champion, where, you know, you bring light and shielding and energy to others, and that's that connectedness, again, sharing the same root, the same, and recognizing that home within everyone that you have. And ultimately, I think your sole purpose in that way is to connect with even people that you would never think to connect to, you know. It might be a challenge in the future, and maybe that's something that comes towards you, is more people that you don't necessarily feel aligned to straight away, but there's a connection there. There's a connection to everyone and everything. And I think seeing that and participating in it will bring a surprising amount of joy. And then we have Serapis Bay, motivation and a healthy life. Motivation. I want to get an extra card for Serapis Day, only because I'm not as familiar. I've heard of Serapis Bay. He's popped up for me in a different deck. For me personally, it's like I don't really know who does. Although these, here we go. Serapis Bay is here to help us with mental body healing. Serapis Bay is associated with healing the highest mind, healing past memories, soul connections, and ascension, as well as learning by practice, motivation, peace, and expression of the divine through the heart, mind, and action. But what stands out to me is soul connections. Connection. I think that's whatever hobbies, whatever things you enjoy the most, and finding people who enjoy the same things, or I think that sends a big spark in your heart. But it would be just so much more rewarding if you could find that spark with every single person that you meet, and that's very difficult. But it also opens the door to a lot of different possibilities that wouldn't have been there before if you were just looking within your niche or within your community, expanding that community, and expanding through that expansion you expand your heart center, and through that expansion you just experience more joy and more of the world and universe as a whole. So that's the message from your future self. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Trying to keep it short, just to see if this one uploads, but if it does, I look forward to seeing you in the next reading. Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, Pile 3. If you chose the blue kyanite, this is going to be your reading on a message from your future self. Let's dive right in. No intros here. So we have the Four of Cups, Life Map, and Soulmates. Two major arcanas coming from your future self. And then we have the Eight of Cups underneath the deck, which I wasn't looking at for any of the other readings. I don't remember, actually. But let's see what the message is from your future self. I think the first part is that you're not seeing something that's in front of you, and I think maybe this is, I was going to say a chronic thing, but there's no judgment here. I don't think your future self is saying, oh, you should have seen it, but it's like a recurring theme is that there's always and it's not a lack of appreciation, although that always goes a long way. Gratitude just elevates your vibration, and that in itself opens opportunities for you when you see more of the things and people that bring love into your life. Speaking of life map is right next to it, and it's almost an expansion through it kind of feels like the Big Bang-ish. Lots of equations and shapes and things like that here. Talking about personalities. Personalities? What did I just say? Yeah, expressions, and how different people, animals, elements of the universe express themselves. And I think part of your journey is when you recognize the expressions of not people would be helpful, focusing more on the expressions of trees and rocks and small things almost widens your third eye to see expressions of, if it makes sense, expressions of opportunity that could present themselves to you in unique ways. The last card we have is Soulmates. Some of you might be going through a soulmate journey, and that might be where you end up. This is like your future self could potentially be uniting with another person, but more likely just in union with, I was going to say yourself, but the universe as a whole, as opposed to one of the other piles I won't spoil in case you want to read one of the other ones. Watch one of the other ones, where it's that sort of union of wholeness of self, the higher self and the shadow, that sort of thing. But this is more of a union with the planet of the universe, feeling like it's finally your home and seeing it. And I guess that's why I was drawn to mention rocks and small things like that, that it's all within you, in a lot of ways, quite literally. I'm going to go to the next part. 10 of lotuses just kind of slid out, so I'm going to show it to you real quick. Put it back in and see if that comes out again. But really, so far, the future self is just letting you know that the way you see the world is very different, and the way that's been most of your evolution is almost in and out of consciousness in a way. There's a lot of major arcana. I think this is a lot of powerful energy that you have now, and you've always had, and you will have in the future. Look at these are all majors. It's kind of ridiculous. And then we have the shapeshifter at the bottom here. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like your life experience is greatly affected by you, by your perception of the world, by your belief in that things can get better, that you can achieve what you want to achieve. Any roadblocks that are there are just a game, really. You have the maze underneath the 4 of lotuses. The maze is caused by not seeing the full picture. Because if you're in this maze, if you're in here, this is a nightmare. It's an actual nightmare. Like, you walk. I say that because, like, if you've been to a mall or just a building, an office building, and like, where's the bathroom? And then I end up going in circles and the same thing. It's like, but if you had like a camera view or a fly on the wall, that sort of thing, you could see everything at once. And your future self is guiding you to get this view, to get this perspective, so that it's not that opportunities present themselves or open up, it's that they've always been there. It's just more of, you get a high enough view and you could actually see the layout of the land being your experience. Okay, shameless plug, but the last 2 readings I mentioned that I was going to do, the next reading is going to be, or a future reading is going to be on the League of Legends. It's like a video game tie-in, but making it spiritual. It's going to work, I promise. But part of it is vision within the video game. So in that game, there is a full map, but you cannot see the enemy territory. It's called the Fog of War in League, and vision is incredibly important in that game, so that you know where your opponents are within the map, because people can move towards you or away from you, and you can kind of gauge at what they're doing. In order to gain vision, you have to use a ward, which lights up a certain area. All this to say, vision is important in the game, and vision is important in real life. I mean, not literally, well, yeah, literally, but vision of where you want to go, who you want to be, and potential ways of getting there. Underneath life map is karma. And these are really interesting cards. This deck in general is interesting. This was my spirit guide's choice. I was not gonna get this deck. I was gonna actually rehome it, but she was like, no. But anyway, look at these. A union of self, internal union, and external union. Look at how that works with karma. But it starts with you. It starts with seeing how you affect the world, how you have a place within the world, what you've already done, what you've already accomplished. And I think that's part of what your future self is saying is it's good to have goals and places that you want to go in life, but reflecting on what you've already done kind of sets a momentum for success in a way. Can you acknowledge the A you got in class or something like that? Can you acknowledge the improvement you're already making? Because if you don't acknowledge that improvement, it's like you could imagine higher self or whatever it is to be like, well, if you don't notice it, why would I keep helping you out? And that's not something they would ever say, by the way, but that's kind of like the idea of notice your own progress first, and then strive to be the better version of you. And it's just also a reference point that your future self wants to take note of. And then we have the vessel here. It's supposed to be the devil card. I've never agreed with that because it's just so pretty, but that's probably the point too. But it's also a surprise for me. For me, it's a surprise, and for me, it's also kind of like the genie in the bottle. Be careful what you wish for. And it's good to have wishes, but like sometimes you don't need to have a wish. It's kind of like a sidestep. I don't know how many of you have seen. Is it Twilight Zone? Yeah, I think Twilight Zone, where there's always you can have 3 wishes, but you have to be careful, and there's always some sort of trick to it. And a way to sidestep that is to not wish for anything, knowing that everything that you will wish for is going to happen anyway, so there's really no need to wish for it. Hopefully that makes sense. But there's, I don't know, a lot of powerful energy. There's a lot of, maybe you've met a soulmate or a twin flame or something like that, and even if they're not with you currently, I think they could be a spirit guide, if that resonates for you. But there's definitely that presence of your other half being close, and that you're both learning from each other. So if it does resonate that it's a spirit guide, this guide is learning from you as well. And I've mentioned that, not that specifically, but that spirit guides do learn from us. It's not just a one-way thing. So yeah, I think that's something that maybe your future self really comes to terms with is, I don't know, it's very big energy. I don't know how else to put it, really. And that, I think it's important to mention that energy's always been there. It's with you now, and it's going to be with you in the future. So it's not something you have to work towards, you know. Okay. We have responsibility, loyalty. I'm really taking this as loyalty and not responsibility. If it's responsibility, it's responsibility to yourself. But I just feel like a really strong companion who's with you constantly, loves you unconditionally. And what if that companion that loves you unconditionally is you? Can you, really unconditionally love yourself at that kind of level? And I think that's a challenge that your future self is putting forth to you now. I'm going to get another card for that one. What is your ideal soulmate? How do they treat you? And we have Grace, the beauty way. This is a wonderful card. Heart-centered. What is it? 8, 9, 10, 11. Master number 11. I had to count. Shameless. I don't care. But very powerful number with the number 11 and 12, which is 3. But with Grace, it's also being easy on yourself, because I think this future self, when you get there, you'll realize, oh, I had this and this opportunity. I could have been someone who made it if I worked harder in school, if I put more effort in my job. I could have been this, and coulda, shouldas. Those, they could guide you towards the future, but if you're just dwelling on that, it's not productive at all. And so it's more of being graceful and understanding. It's like, well, there's a reason why you didn't do that. You're focused on other things, and you learned lessons from those other things that you focused on, even if it didn't turn out well. So let's get a card from, I guess, a spirit guide, an entity that helps you connect to your future self, helps you forge a path towards this version of you that is most satisfied, in love. I'll say it. I think this version, more so than the other pals, is in love. I'm not saying with what. It could be the universe. I highly recommend that, actually. I like that mindset, so that you don't expect, oh, when am I getting a partner? And it's almost like, when is this gonna happen? That anticipation is fun. It is fun, but if you really feel what it feels like, it's tightening, right? You're like, oh, I can't. But it's like, it's cramped, in other words, and this energy is about kind of opening up a little bit, and it's coming. That, like that. So so we have the number 25, Bast, pleasure and family. There's something about pleasure here. Finding pleasure in yourself, finding pleasure in the small things, and again, like pebbles and this sound of gravel, and I like helicopters or horses, and those little things are really important. They really connect you to your soul. But we have Bast, which is cats, and right away we notice that union between karma, soulmates, right? But wait for it. You know what's coming. Look at this. The cat and the dog together, each bringing their own wisdom, their own way of living. And how could you embrace both of those sides? The dog, loyal, faithful, a lot more obedient. Dogs usually do whatever you say, no commands. Cats do their own thing. They don't have to listen. They won't. I mean, you can obviously have a relationship with cats in that way, but they're a bit more wild in that sense, and loving those sides of you, and those sides of other people too. And I think that's where your power comes from, because you already know this. Big stuff, and I would say, like, big stuff to look forward to, but I think that's part of the lesson, like I've said, from your future self, is like, it's there, it's already here. Believe that it's already here, that these things that you want to accomplish are within your grasp now, not tomorrow. Oh look, yeah. So I'm going to end the reading there. Hopefully this one uploads properly, and if it does, you could look forward to a lot more readings in the near future. Yes, I'm excited. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Take care.